Now, I'm sure there'll be some times that you can think of where you've been listening to some music and it's been impossible to listen to that piece of music standing still in the same place. There's been something about it that's made you want to clap your hands or stamp your feet or move in time with the music, and a lot of that will be to do with the music's rhythm. Now, before we can start looking at rhythm, we need to understand the foundation that rhythm is built on, and that's called beat. Beat is a really important part of almost all music, and you can go all around the world and look at music from lots of different cultures, and you'll find that beat is a really important part. It's absolutely at the centre of it, and everything is built on top of the beat in the music. Now, one reason that people think that almost all of the world's music is based on some kind of steady beat is that actually we've got a beat going inside all of us all the time. We've got our heart in our chest pumping away all of the time, and most of the time, unless you've got something wrong with you, your heart is generally going at a very steady, regular beat. And sometimes we measure, if you go to the doctors, they'll tell you your heartbeat, and you say, oh, well, your heart's going at 70 beats per minute or 60 beats per minute. And in some ways, that is exactly the same way that we talk about beat in music. You might have heard someone talk about a piece of music that's 120 beats per minute, and that actually sort of maps very directly onto seconds, because if we think about a piece of music that's got 60 beats per minute, and there's 60 equal beats, so we're breaking each minute up into 60 chunks, this might sound very familiar because there's another word that we use when we break a minute up into 60 equal chunks, and of course that is a second. So if we have a piece that's playing at 60 beats per minute, that's one beat every second. And actually, if you ever conduct an orchestra, you sometimes see conductors with their wristwatch out on the music stand, and that's just so if they're playing a piece of music, they can very easily get an idea of what 60 beats per minute might sound like, and that's very easy to match on the watch because it's just every time the second hand ticks around the watch face, then you know that that's one of the 60 beats. So let's imagine a different piece, a much faster piece that had 120 beats per minute, so BPM. Now obviously each chunk of the music, each beat is going to be much faster because we have to fit in twice as many as we did up here when we were playing a piece with 60 beats per minute. And so here we're going to have 2 beats every second. So it'll be much quicker, twice as fast in fact. So hopefully you've got the idea that actually beat in music is very similar to a heartbeat. It's something that's just ticking away, just like a clock, measuring out time for us. And it's useful. It allows us to actually make the most of time in our music, because we don't need to worry about how long we're going to play things for. We've got this beat. We can count in beats. We can say we're going to play a sound for 4 beats or 8 beats or 12 beats or 1 beat. And it allows us to work with other people, because if we all have this shared understanding of how we're going to use time in our music, it makes it so much easier for us to work together. Now, this doesn't exactly answer the question, well, what is the beat exactly? Well, sometimes in music, there isn't a part of the music that's showing us the beat. Sometimes it's not very obvious where the beat is. Other times it's very, very clear. Often rock and pop music, for example, you do sometimes have drum beats that just, all they're doing is measuring out the beat, really. You might have the bass drum that is giving us the constant beat. Now, there'll be other things going on over the top of this, but it doesn't change. All it's doing is measuring out some time for us. Now, sometimes in music, it's not so obvious where the beat actually is in the music, but you can be absolutely sure that the musicians will be thinking very carefully about the way they're measuring out time and the beats that are passing in the music. They might be very slow, they might only be happening very rarely, but it's still really important that we count our way through music in terms of beats. But beat isn't really the whole story, and it's not the most exciting thing when it comes to rhythm, because all beat really does is measure out time in an equal way. It's a bit like a clock ticking at a regular tempo. So we might have a beat that sounds a bit like this. It sounds a bit like a heartbeat. So this is a bass drum sound. But I'm trying as much as possible to keep the beat as regular as possible. Now, I'm sure you'll agree that this is a pretty dull piece of music to listen to. And so it shows us that the beat isn't really the whole story. The beat is just our kind of foundation. It's a bit like we're building a house. Now you can do some really exciting things with architecture. You can build some amazing buildings, and you can make them really, really bizarre and weird and irregular and have some different shapes and colours and materials in there. But most of the time, your house is going to fall down if you don't have some really solid foundations. And that is what the beat is. So if we need to really understand what the beat is, it's a kind of foundation helping us to make use of time. Because music without time is just kind of pointless. It's not like a book or a painting in an art gallery. We've got to experience it in real time. And so as musicians, we need to become kind of masters of time. And we need to be able to find ways of controlling it and find ways of using it in conjunction with other people. And so we need to have this shared point of reference in terms of time. And if I can define beat, that's what it is. It's getting this idea of regular passing time into the music. And then we can start to do the really cool stuff, which we'll have a look at next.